welcome to the Deep Dive. So you're likely here because you know CAFTA 6.0b. You've probably spent quite a bit of time with it, right? You understand it, it works for you.
Exactly. It gets the job done.
And that leads to the big question, doesn't it? If it isn't broken, why fix it? Which honestly is a perfectly valid question.
It really is. We know you've got models, established processes built around 6.0b. Thinking about switching, it can feel like a big step. Maybe the benefits aren't immediately clear.
So that's what this deep dive is all about. We want to explore the why. Why would you, as a current CAFTA 6.0b user, consider moving up to version 11.1a?
Precisely. It's not about saying 6.0b is bad, but about what new capabilities version 11.1a unlocks. We're really focusing on that why upgrade question today.
And we're going to tackle that by looking at, three main areas where things have really advanced. Quantification, automation, and also collaboration.
Yeah, these are pretty significant enhancements designed to help deal with the kinds of complex risk models that seem to be becoming more common.
Okay, so let's dive into that first word, quantification.
Right. So if you're using 6.0b, quantification is obviously core to what you do. Fault trees, event trees, you rely on tools like GTprob for those probability calculations. It's fundamental.
It is. And here's the first really big change in version 11. GTprob is retired. EPRI, the original developers, they're not supporting it anymore.
Yeah, that's a key point.
So taking its place is a new tool. It's called DPC, the Direct Probability Calculator. Now, fundamentally, it does the same job, right? Calculating those fault tree numbers.
It does the same core job, yes. But, and this is where it gets really interesting, DPC is stated to be, up to 10 times faster than GTprob.
10 times? Wow.
Yeah, 10 times faster. Just think about that for a second. An analysis that might have tied up your afternoon, it could potentially be done, before your next coffee. That frees up a lot of analyst time for more, thinking work.
That's a huge difference. And there's a technical reason for that speed boost, isn't there?
There is. It's pretty straightforward, actually. GTprob was a 32-bit program. That inherently limited how much computer memory it could use.
Right, the old memory limits.
Exactly. DPC, on the other hand, it's a 64-bit application. So think of it like GTprob had a small desk, right? It gets cluttered quickly. DPC has a much, much larger desk. It can handle way more data efficiently.
Ah, okay. So it can handle those very large fault trees the documentation mentions without getting bogged down. Because sometimes 6.0b really struggled with the big ones.
Precisely. That 32-bit limit was often the bottleneck causing those slowdowns or crashes with large models. The 64-bit architecture largely overcomes that.
Okay, faster is great. But does it change how you work?
Well, this is maybe the really cool part. Because it's so fast, CAFTA 11 offers this new option. You can have DPC running continuously in the background, like Excel recalculating.
Wait, so as I'm editing the tree, changing a probability, moving a gate, it updates the top event probability instantly.
Basically, yes. Real-time feedback. You see the impact of your changes immediately. No more running a separate quantification step just to see what happened.
Okay. That could completely change the iteration process.
It really could. It makes the whole modeling process feel much more interactive, more intuitive. You can understand sensitivities much quicker.
Yeah.
It's a potential game changer for efficiency, accelerating that development and refinement cycle.
So quantification is faster, more powerful, and potentially more interactive. But you mentioned models are getting bigger, more complex.
Which brings us neatly to automation. Because faster calculations are great, but if your models are generating, say, 1 million cut sets or your printout is 500 pages long, managing that manually gets tough.
Yeah, trying to manually sift through that kind of data volume is, it's just not practical, is it? You're bound to miss things.
Absolutely. Those huge data sets push the limits. And that's exactly where the scripting feature in CAFTA 11.1 comes in. It's designed to let you automate repetitive stuff or even build new functions specific to your project.
Okay, scripting. And the engine behind that is something new too, right? Phoenix API.
That's right. Phoenix API is the new software developer kit, and this is important. It replaces the older RAPI that was used back in version 6.0b.
Ah, so if you've built custom scripts using RAPI and 6.0b, those won't just work out of the box in 11.1.
Correct. That's the transition cost, you could say. There's a new syntax, a new way of doing things with Phoenix API. So existing RAPI scripts would need to be adapted or rewritten.
Okay, that's a fair point. That's an investment of time and effort, definitely. We know people put work into those RAPI scripts.
It is an investment. But the old RAPI, it had limitations, especially when dealing with modern, complex projects. It was becoming a bottleneck itself.
So what's the payoff for making that switch, for learning Phoenix API?
The big payoff, I think, comes from the new capabilities. Phoenix API introduces project-level commands. That's a major step up.
Project level, meaning?
Meaning you can write a script that acts across all the files within an entire CAFTA project, not just one file at a time.
Ah, okay. So like the example they gave, printing all the fault trees in a project with one command, instead of opening and printing each one manually like in 6.0b.
Exactly that kind of thing.
Huh.
Imagine the time saved on large projects. It's a significant boost in efficiency for those kinds of multi-file tasks.
That does sound powerful. Are there things users need to be cautious about with these project-level scripts?
Well, like any powerful automation, you need good planning and testing, obviously. But the Phoenix API itself is built on more modern principles. It aims to be more robust, more flexible than our API was.
So it's described as the new software developer kit, suggests it's more capable overall.
That's the indication, yes. A more modern foundation that could potentially open up even more automation possibilities later on.
Okay. So yeah, there's an initial learning curve with the scripting, but the potential to automate those big repetitive tasks across whole projects.
That does sound like a strong reason to consider the upgrade. We're right. What was the third area? Collaboration?
Collaboration, yes. In risk analysis today, it's rare for one person to do everything, isn't it? Teams need to work together on these models.
Definitely. And anyone who's tried that with CAFTA 6.0b probably knows the headaches, managing different copies of files, maybe just slightly different names, V2, final.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there, right? That horrible moment you realize you spent hours working on slightly the wrong version. It's confusing, leads to errors, wastes time.
Absolutely. So how do you keep everyone on the same page? How do you track who changed what?
Well, this is where CAFTA 11.1 introduces the repository feature. It's designed specifically for proper version control. Think of it like a secure library for your project files.
A repository. Okay, so what does that actually do for the team? It functions as a central archive. It has document check-in and check-out. So only one person can actively edit a specific file at a time. That stops people accidentally overwriting each other's work.
Okay, that makes sense. Prevents conflicting versions.
Precisely. And crucially, every time someone checks a file back in, the repository automatically logs who did it and when. You get a complete revision history.
Ah, so you can see exactly who made what change and on what date.
Exactly. The practical benefit is huge. It makes it genuinely feasible for teams to work independently on different parts of a project, then merge their work back together safely and efficiently. You know who did what? You trust the system.
And I saw something about file comparison tools, too.
Yes, that's another part of it. CAFTA 11 includes tools to let you compare different versions of a file stored in that repository archive.
So you can easily see exactly what changed between, say, version 3 and version 4.
Right. Highlight the differences. That's invaluable for reviews, for understanding how the model evolved, catching potential errors introduced between versions. It just makes the whole collaboration process much more transparent and, frankly, less error-prone.
Okay, so let's pull this together. We've talked about upgrading to CAFTA version 11.1a.
Yeah, we've seen the faster, more powerful quantification with DPC, plus that real-time calculation option.
Then the automation capabilities through the new scripting with Phoenix API handling those big tasks.
And finally, the repository feature, bringing proper version control and better tools for team collaboration.
So going back to that original question, if it isn't broken, why fix it?
Well, I think the answer becomes clearer now. It's really not about fixing something broken in 6.0b. It's worked well for years. It's about unlocking new levels of efficiency.
Right. Handling the bigger, more complex models that seem to be the norm now.
Exactly. And enabling smoother, more reliable teamwork. It's about moving from what's working okay now to what could be working much better, letting you use your time and expertise more effectively.
So, as you, the listener, continue your work with CAFTA, maybe think about this. What could that tenfold speed increase mean for your deadlines? How much time could you save by automating some of those repetitive project tasks?
And how much smoother could your team projects run with robust version control and clear change tracking?
These features in version 11.1a, they're more than just additions. They could genuinely change how you approach and manage risk assessment. It really seems worth exploring what version 11.1a might offer for your specific needs, both now and looking ahead.